So the myth is that anger is bad for your love life. But the truth is that anger is actually good for your love life when it's harnessed in the right way. So many women that I speak to are afraid to be upset. They think they need to walk on eggshells. They're afraid that if they show that they're upset, that their partner or the person that they're dating will leave, and they have this fear of abandonment or rejection that comes up. Or they might just be used to this like numb kind of cloud-like state where just everything is fine and I'm a peaceful person and I don't want to get upset. And there's so much BS out there about, we shouldn't feel anger or anger is bad. And I especially find that women have that response, maybe because it was never safe for them to feel anger when they were growing up, or maybe they never got taught how to be in a place where they could feel the power of their anger without having negative repercussions. Or maybe they had people in their life who were angry at them, and then that was challenging for them to feel like they could have their anger when they've seen other people be angry and it didn't feel safe. So I'm here to tell you that anger is actually super healthy, but there's something you want to watch out for. And so I'm going to share the 5 ways that anger is actually good for your love life, healthy for your love life, and the one thing to watch out for when you are doing this dance. And the reason that I think this is really important is because anger is such a potent tool for transformation, because anger is really fire. So fire is heat and light. It destroys things, of course, and it helps us to set healthy boundaries, but it provides a lot of light. The element of fire provides insight and clarity and illumination. And the heat of fire can help us to burn away the old and help us to create something new. We've had a ton of fires, unfortunately, in Oregon and California and Colorado and all over, the US lately, and I'm sad that that's happening, obviously, but one of the reasons that it does happen is because we don't necessarily burn away the old. We don't have the controlled fires that we need to have. And so if you've gone through something like that, my heart goes out to you, but on a personal and a collective level, I want us to be really effective and skilled at the way that we use anger, because once you get to use this in a positive way, you're going to notice a huge impact in all of your relationships, not just in your love life. So I'm someone who's a recovering, person who used to not feel comfortable expressing anger. I used to feel like I needed to keep it all bottled up inside, and I actually felt kind of smug about that. I thought that made me, a better person. But it turns out I was really not living authentically in a lot of my relationships, and then it was making it really challenging to date because I just got walked over all the time instead of really being in my power. So the 5 ways that anger can actually help your love life is, number 1, it shows you there's a better way. When we're angry, it's because something doesn't feel right, and we know that there's something that's got to be different. Like, we cannot tolerate this anymore. This is something that, shouldn't be happening. And it gives us a great deal of power to recognize, wait a minute, there's got to be a better way. So when you do feel anger, recognize that it's a positive thing, teaching you a better way of being. And then the second way that anger can really help your love life is by helping you set healthy boundaries and pushing out things that don't really serve you. So often we just feel like we're at the whim of anything that comes towards us, especially if you really, enjoy receiving or you're really good at kind of going with the flow. But the problem with that is that we can become so full and so bogged down that there's no space for anything new. And so when we feel anger, it's a good indication that something A, needs to change, and B, is something that our boundary has been violated with, or something that we need to shift and push away. So developmentally, as young children, a lot of times when we're young, the first step is the grabbing. We have to grab the nursing or the toy or those things. But then the second developmental step is pushing away. And until we can grab safely and push away safely, we're not actually going to be able to receive safely because we won't feel safe in that. So a lot of us have bypassed those first 2 stages. We're not comfortable going after what we want, the grabbing. We're not comfortable pushing things away. So we're just receiving, but it's in a container that's not very clean. It's in a container that's not actually serving us. So the second way that anger really helps us in a healthy relationship is to be able to set a healthy boundary. And, that might look like telling someone, hey, it doesn't work for me if you're 20 minutes late for a date. Like, I need you to respect my time more. That's just an example. But setting a healthy boundary is a great way to feel like you have more power in relationships and to get what you want in relationships. And that leads me to the third reason that anger can be really helpful for creating a healthy relationship. And that is, hi Melissa. And the third reason that anger can be helpful for creating a healthy relationship is because it can help clear out the old so that you have room for more. So typically when we feel angry, unless it's just something maybe silly like someone cutting us off in traffic, typically when we actually feel like a deep anger, it's because we know we deserve better. It's because we're tired of, either wasting our time or feeling disrespected or repeating the same old patterns. And so the third way that anger can really help us have a healthy relationship is to wake us up, to illuminate to us that we deserve more and we want more. So have you ever seen someone, that's engaged and you're thinking, how the heck did that happen? Like, I'm so angry. I've, been doing all the things, or I've been online dating, or I've been really, putting myself out there. Like, how come someone else gets this and I don't? So I know that might sound a little bit childish, but we've all been there. We've all felt envious or jealous, or anger is normally kind of underlying those emotions. And it's a sign that we deserve more and we want more. And until we feel the depth of wanting more, oftentimes we're not going to make change. We're going to, make excuses, or we're going to spiritually bypass anger because it might feel uncomfortable. And we're just going to say, oh, everything's fine. But then we're flat. We're maybe in a neutral position, or we're feeling like we're staying stuck. So we need our anger to wake us up and remind us that we deserve more, we want more, and that we're going to get more. Now, we only get more if we take the fourth step of the fourth reason of why anger is really good actually in a healthy relationship. And that fourth step is to take action. So if you feel a ton of anger, and that's good if you're feeling your anger, but you're not taking action with it, then it's going to eat yourself alive, or it's going to really hurt your relationship. And I'm going to talk about the pitfall to avoid when it comes to anger in relationships and dating. But what I want you to know right now is that you have to take action. When you feel anger, it is there for a reason. It is there to help you set a healthy boundary, to clear out the old so you can get more, to wake you up to what it is that you really want, and you need to be able to harness that energy. So anger is just powerful energy. It's like the fire. It's like the guy from Inside Out where he's like, "Argh," and the steam is coming out of his head. It's potent energy. That steam is, steam that used to power things in the olden days, like locomotives and all of that. And now that same heat and that same energy and that same fire can give you the energy you need to propel you forward. And propelling ourselves forward is a lot easier when we have that anger, when we have that heat. Now, you can take forward action without anger, but anger is a biological, it's a chemical response that helps us to move forward towards what we want and away from what we don't want. And a lot of times people really miss this step. So maybe they're not even feeling their anger at all. And that itself can be a really big problem in relationship. Which I've talked about. You'll stay stuck, you'll maybe attract the wrong sort of people, you'll give people like a free pass when you shouldn't, you won't pay attention to red flags, you'll think everything's your fault. Like, there's a lot of problems with not feeling our anger. But once we do feel our anger, the second big hurdle is to make sure that we're using it in a clean way. And that means really harnessing the power of the anger instead of leaking that energy. And this is the pitfall. So we'll go ahead and talk about the pitfall now. The pitfall of anger is that you might end up leaking that powerful energy and projecting it either onto your partner or the other person, like, you did this to me, and you're always late, and you're a jerk, and, all of those things that make someone else defensive. Those are not helpful. That is the pitfall of projecting our anger onto someone else, blaming someone else for how we feel. But the second part of that pitfall is triangulation. It's when we're actually really mad at someone, but instead of saying that to them, we go and talk to someone else, and we dissipate the power and the charge of the anger into a different situation that someone isn't even involved. So maybe you're angry at, a guy that you've been dating for a few weeks, but you talk about it with your girlfriend instead of working through the anger yourself, taking responsibility for what part of this is that you own, and then setting a healthy boundary and laying out what you want in the future. So if you're not doing that, if you're not using anger in a clean way, you're going to be misusing this beautiful energy that can actually propel you forward. So the fourth reason that anger is really important in a healthy relationship is exactly that. It's an emotion, it's energy, the E, that puts you into motion, that helps you move forward towards what you want and away from what you don't want. And that brings me to the fifth reason that anger is actually really important in a healthy relationship, is it helps give you the illumination. So fire is just light and heat, and the light part of this is the illumination, the new awareness. And with that illumination of what you want, what you won't tolerate anymore, what feels good, what doesn't feel good, it will give you the consistency to make the change lasting. So once you take action, super important, You want to make sure that the action is lasting. So the way you do that is to remember this illumination. Now, anger is a spiritual power. It's very, very helpful. You can be totally spiritual and feel your anger. If you're spiritual and you're never feeling anger, you're probably bypassing anger and you're missing out on all this potency. So you want to keep the momentum going once you've made a new change, once you've set a healthy boundary, once you've changed a pattern. And the way you do that is harnessing the light of the anger to maintain the awareness within your mind, so you have the mindset that really serves you. And there's a bunch of different ways to work on your mindset, but the main thing is to make sure that it's consistent and that you have a way to come back to this new version of yourself, this new awareness, and not feel like you have to get drugged back into the past. This is something that so many people struggle with, especially women, and there's a nervous system reason, which I'm going to tell you about in a second, and then there's also more of just kind of an emotional reason that I find. So a lot of times we set a healthy boundary, let's say we get all the way through these 4 stages, and we want to keep the momentum, and then we have so much compassion in our hearts, or we have so much forgiveness, or we have such a deep need for love that we decide like, oh, it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm going to give that person some slack, or, you know, I was being so rude, like, I need to just lighten up. We shame ourselves for our anger. We tell ourselves that it's not okay, and then we go back to square one. So this 5th step of the 5 reasons why anger is good for a healthy relationship means maintaining the momentum, which is grounded in the illumination and in the awareness. And that means the awareness that on a spiritual level, anger is very powerful, and the awareness that you need to maintain your boundaries. You need to keep going towards what you want and away from what you don't want. And you need to keep the momentum going, and that can happen through the support of a group or support of friends or a mentor or all of that. But the main thing is to not keep taking 1 step forward and 2 steps backward. And that can get hard in relationship because of this nervous system thing that I want to tell you about. So a lot of the information that you might see on the nervous system, it says, there's fight and flight, or there's freeze, and then there's like the normal level. But what they've discovered is that actually primarily in women, they don't access fight or flight. So what that means is instead they're accessing please and appease. So the nervous system normally would go into fight or flight, but for a lot of reasons societally, as women, we can't fight. Maybe the person who's with us is bigger than us. Maybe it doesn't feel safe. Maybe we're afraid that we're going to be ostracized from society if we're exhibiting that sort of character, that sort of behavior. And oftentimes we also can't flee. Maybe you have children. Maybe you have, responsibilities and obligations, and you can't actually leave the situation. So very cleverly, female nervous system, and it could apply to males as well, but it's just been more documented in the female nervous system. Female nervous system will experience the please and appease. So we are used to biologically pleasing the other person and appeasing them until we feel safe. And then once we feel safe, we'll kind of leave the situation and tend our own garden, so to speak. But sometimes that circuit doesn't get completed because we might please and appease, but then never actually get it out of our nervous system by feeling the anger and working through the anger. So one of the biggest problems I see for women who are stuck in their love life is they're not allowing themselves to feel healthy anger, and then they're not using the anger to its full potential, which I explained in these 5 steps, in these 5 principles. So I really encourage you to get in touch with your anger in a healthy way, to follow these 5 steps, and to get support so that you can know how to work through the emotions that come up for you. We all have anger, we all have sadness, we all have jealousy, and we also all have joy. Maybe you're watching this and you're like, Violet, I'm cool with anger. I'm actually really good with anger. I'm not so good with being happy. Like, how do I get more of that? Well, each of the emotions has a different thing that we need in order to utilize it to its fullest potential for ourselves and also for our relationships. And relationships can be the most lasting and the most effective and the most fulfilling and passionate when we have that full range of energetic alignment within ourselves, and when we really understand our emotions and we can bring that to our partner. Because then we can take total responsibility and we're not dependent on a guy or a partner in general to give us what we want. We are able to totally get what we want and need and take care of ourselves, and then it becomes really exciting for someone to spend time with us, and it becomes a gift for them to take care of us instead of feeling like it's a chore or instead of feeling like we're getting stuck into victim state. So clearly I'm very passionate about this topic, and if you've ever wondered, wondered, how can I make my dating life better? How can I get more in touch with my anger? How can I actually change my patterns of dating so I'm not feeling like I'm getting walked all over or attracting the same sort of guys? I would totally love to connect with you. I do free 45-minute breakthrough to love sessions, and in that you're going to get a lot of illumination, like we've talked about what your patterns are, what's holding you back, and then what it is that you really want. So we'll put the link in the comments and you can select your spot there. There's a few spots each week, and so go ahead and sign up for that now. And then I will see you all either later this week or next Monday. Thank you. Bye.